Hey guys, welcome back. We are the VRE podcast, virtual reality experience. Today, I'm Joey Roxett. This is Zach Rosen, and we're also with a special guest, Stephen Pop, otherwise known as the Godfather. And we're going to get right into it. Zach, you have any thing you want to start off with? Or?
Well, first of all, shout out to the way you're dressed, my man. If it was 3 months ago, I'd be able to dress like you.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm in a TJ Maxx discount sweater. So
yeah. Well, when we did the first interview, it was a little less formal.
I'm a little different than you guys. I'm just joking.
Yeah. So, okay. To begin with, I want to give you a couple numbers with a couple dates, okay? February 7th. That's when we dropped our first interview together.
Yeah.
Stock price for ENZC, 53 cents. 2 days later, 96 cents. Fast forward 2 months, just 2 months, 8.7 cents is the low. Today at close, we finished at 11 cents. That's about an 88% decrease on the stock price since its high. That's a hell of a roller coaster. What is going on, my man?
All right. So, wow. I mean, that is the big question. And so essentially, if you look back to what happened, and it all started February 2nd, you had all these stocks kind of go through the same cycle. It didn't matter what company it was. It could have been a zero bid company. Any company you threw money into, you were guaranteed to double your money, right? And so all these companies, it was very market driven because you have all these charts that you could put one on top of the other. They look identical. Humble, ENZC, WDLFL. You have every single company acting the same way, which should tell you, hey, this is not company driven. So the inflation or the rise in value was not something that the company was doing. It was something happening behind the scene, right? So there's a lot of speculation that this could have all been, a play by by a hedge fund. It could have been the market makers, brokers. In fact, we don't know really what happened. There's no concrete evidence, even though I tend to believe there was some foul play kind of happening on behind the scene, right? So you have all these stocks kind of artificially inflated. Everybody's, cloud nine, feeling that euphoria. Next thing you know, every single company acted the same way over the past 2 or 3 months, right? Every single company kind of, by every single, like 95% of them, all kind of saw the very similar declines, right? No investors making money at this point. And so, it kind of lends to say, all right, well, it could have been heavily shorted. There could have been something kind of going on behind the scenes. Money could have been driven out of the crypto, right? There's no guarantee we're really knowing what happened in this time frame. But we do know is that for ENZC anyways, is between those 2 months, we've made a lot of progress. I mean, we've had this Intel collaboration, which is now official out there. It's the white papers. You had a distribution and licensing agreement, which back in December was all the rave, right? Everybody was super excited about this. And so all this progress, it's almost being whitewashed, right? We're, in a normal market. What is it?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's absolute madness.
Yeah. And in a normal market, it would have been something like this Intel news came out. It would have been extremely catalytic. You would have seen this company take off like no tomorrow. Right? So we've made all this progress, but the price is not reflecting the value where we're at now. So it's just one of those things where it's definitely market driven. So it's nothing that's going on with the company. There's absolutely no dilution. There's no debts. All the debt's been extinguished. And so with all this progress, you expect to eventually be a turnaround point from a bearish cycle to a bullish cycle.
Yeah. So you touched on this. I want to go back to something you said. Obviously, the big news of this week is the partnership with Intel. What is going on with that? Well, can fill us in with some of the details.
Okay, yeah, and so for clarification, it's not an official partnership yet. So it's a collaborative effort. It's all good. Actually, you had an Intel director that made a mistake today as well. She said, "Oh, partnership with ENZC," and she took that tweet down right away and she changed it to collaboration. Right, but so essentially, the white paper, it's a document that details a service or product offering that a company has or intends on building in the future. And in our case, it's an offering that we intend on building. And really, this white paper, it talks about P4 medicine, which is predictive. preventative, and all this stuff, and how Intel and ENZC will have both the technologies that are very synergetic to kind of get us to the next level of healthcare, right? Even the title of the paper, it's called Empathetic AI to Optimize a Cure for Diseases, right? They have the word cure in the very front pages. And it's like in page 4 or page 5, it starts talking about how ENZC has already used that technology with AI to find conservative sites on the virus. And so Intel backing us or putting this in a white paper just tells us how much they believe in our company, right? In terms of how AI can be applied. So it's very legitimizing. It validates everything you said. It gives very little grounds for this so-called bashers to say, hey, this company is, no, Intel's not going to be backing a scam company, right? And so there's all these legitimizing factors that kind of play its role. But in the long run, I think there's going to be a lot more coming out with Intel, right? It's not just a white paper. There's going to be some movement. And you have the main guy, Clifton Roberts, who used to be the director of partnerships. He just got a new role as a director of business acceleration, right? And so this guy is heavily involved in government activities. And there's even an excerpt in the document where they talk about partnerships and getting that private-public symbiosis kind of for the company. So he's going to be a driving force to supporting our company going forward, right? So I believe that in the future you'll see an official partnership come out of this.
Crazy, man. It's almost too much because like you said, nothing's reflective right now. Like if I would almost say if a quarter of the news that we've gotten in the past 2 months came out in February, the beginning of February, like you said, it would have been just cataclystic. It would
have been $100 stock.
Well, maybe not $100, but
I'm just joking. I'm being just. So in regard to Intel, is this the first type of partnership that they've done with a biochemistry type of company, or is this the first of its kind?
Yeah, so I think they might have some sort of dealings like this. I'm not entirely sure, but I've never specifically seen one where it talks about AI and healthcare together. I would imagine that they probably have AI in different industries. I'm just not entirely sure to what extent they have it in healthcare, right? Or at least in the sense of how we're intending on applying their artificial intelligence, which is to cure diseases. I've never seen one for curing disease, and I highly doubt there's one specifically for a disease cure. Right. So I think that in itself is new.
What about other partnerships outside of Intel? Is there anything in the pipeline that investors have, to look forward to?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So there was one that came out last week with the distribution licensing agreement. Right. So the company is actually is forming a company with the distributor or the licensee, have 50% ownership. But they also mentioned in the coming week, which I would imagine would have been this week, European transaction, right? So they're foreshadowing another agreement coming soon, right? So I'm not entirely sure when, but that licensing agreement is likely to happen, and it's European. Regarding other partnerships, there's the ones that exist today. There is one with SEC, which is a company, SEC Biologic, which is a company that helps companies go through clinical trials and preparing all the documents. You have GenScript, who is the manufacturer and the producing partner. So you have all these partners. I'd say there's probably 7 or 8 of them. But in terms of ones that are really going to move the needle, I expect there to be a pharmaceutical partnership. And they've already mentioned one for HTLV, right, which is the cause of a specific type of cancer. They said, it intends to partner with this pharmaceutical company. We don't know whether it's a big pharmaceutical company, which fingers crossed it is, or it could be a minor, small pharmaceutical company where we're working. But the key here is that for HTLV, we have not done the AI work, right? There hasn't been any artificial intelligence work that's come out of it. So I imagine it's probably with Intel. It's going to be, all right, Intel, ENZC, let's trial this out. Let's see if how well this technology works in identifying sites on different viruses. So there's that HTLV potential there as well.
Wow.
Could be a big company. I'm hoping it's Gilead, but.
Joey,
I
I'm
think
sorry. I thought you were going to
I
go.
know. I think my camera just cut out for a second there. Sorry, guys. Sorry, it's a little tough with Zoom, but given the current situation, we had this interview all set up and things didn't go correct. So now we're trying to nail it out the best we can. And so if there's a little bit of delay, we're not trying to be awkward. We're just waiting for the camera to speed up. You know what I mean? All right. So Zach, you can keep conducting this. Keep on going.
Yeah, my bad, my man. Okay, so I want to dig into the drug development pipeline. I know we're working on COVID. Sorry, the pickup truck there. I know we're working on COVID. What else? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. AIDS, correct? HIV. What else do we have in regard to the drug development pipeline?
Okay, so for the existing products, so we have the HIV monoclonal antibody, right? So that's the clone 3. So for that one, that's currently being tested in vitro in 2 locations. One is at the University of Montana, which we're expecting results anytime now. And then there's one in France, Strasbourg, France, at the Serum Institute. That one's expected in about a month from now, right? And so for those 2, once that happens, the company has already stated that they're going to start animal trials sometime soon after we're done with the in vitros, right? So they're going to be testing our monoclonal antibodies, this clone 3, on live monkeys, right? So you could eventually hear of
monkey. They test on monkeys?
Yeah, it's the California National Primate Research Center. Huh. Yeah, they're going to. That's the animal trial.
Just like the movies, man. Just like
I thought it was just like, yeah, that's how Planet of the Apes starts.
Yeah, probably.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and so that's clone 3. But they also mentioned that they're going to be trying to develop other antibodies for HIV. So just within HIV monoclonal antibodies, there's 2 kind of pathways. One was for the existing product that we have, and another one that they're trying to produce more antibodies and probably going to use Intel's AI discoveries to do so. A second product is ITV1, which is a licensing and distribution agreement that the company just had, and that is also targeting HIV. But the difference is that this is not a monoclonal antibody. This is a fragmented pepsin therapeutic, which is kind of more of a softer type drug, right? However, they've done the study on this one where they compared it to Tamiflu, right? At a lower dosage, being equally effective and 20 times less toxic, which means that this product could eventually be advertised for the flu, but over the counter, since it's extremely less toxic, right? You can take it with less danger of actually hurting yourself. Unlike Tamiflu, which there are some serious side effects if you take it incorrectly, right? So you have ITV1, which is for HIV, can be used for the flu. Oh, and another thing, it's being advertised for COVID as well, because it's advertised for being an immuno enhancer in different countries, right? So in Bulgaria and other places. So those are the 2 drugs so far. The third one is for COVID, right? So there's the monoclonal antibodies for COVID that they've targeted conserved sites. So that one's progressing. The company said for that one, they're going to be fast tracking clinical trials. That's all they said. And I'm like, all right.
So what does that mean?
It means that, well, with the help with STS, with STC, they're going to be doing it within 6 months. And so this part, I'll be honest, I don't have enough details from the company to fully understand what phases, this completes. What they mentioned is that within 6 months, the fast track clinical trials would be done. So that puts us towards the end of the year, right? Actually, before the end of the year. So I don't know what the steps are. The company needs to elaborate a little further of how they're going to do that and how they're going to get there. And the work that's probably happening right now behind the scenes that we just don't know about, right? So those are the 3 products right now that are currently have something. For HTLV was something new that the company mentioned that they're doing the AI. That one's still kind of like in early development. They haven't gotten to the artificial intelligence bit yet to identify sites, but more than likely they'll evolve from there. And then so with those 4 products, those are stuff that we know we're working on. The company has mentioned that there's, a whole entire list of other diseases that we can go out there for, right? You can go out for herpes, influenza, HSV1, HSV2. There's not a limit for viruses. I think there's about 14 of them ranging from A to Ebola, right? So there's all these things that the company could be working on in the future. And I think that's what Intel saw is like, hey, you applied AI to identify these sites, develop a drug, you're going to be doing great things in the future. We want to be part of it. So, yeah.
If you had to take a stab in the dark, which cure comes to market first?
More than likely, ITV1. It's not a cure though. ITV1 is, support your immune system. But out of all the cures that'll come first, it will definitely be the, well, actually, I can't even say that. I was thinking the HIV one because it's going through animal trials. Well, for COVID, they're fast tracking. I don't know if they're going to get something out to market sooner. I don't know if they're going to try working through the FDA approval process to try and getting an emergency use authorization just due to the current climate we're in. So those two are likely, one of those two are likely going to be commercialized first.
Wow.
Gotcha.
I mean,
Joey,
it's all good news, man.
It's great news.
Once again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's all good news, and it's just amazing that the market is doing what it's doing. But I guess it makes me feel better that everything looks the way that it does. You know what I mean? It's not just like this stock. If every other stock was soaring and it was just this stock, I'd be freaking out a little bit. But even then, from all the great info that's been coming out, it's baffling, you know. And that's really all I got. I don't have too much to say other than, you know, it's a bummer, but you know, the patience I think will pay off for this one. I think it's too good to pass up, in my opinion. Now, once again, I'm not a financial advisor, but there's nothing bad about it. There's no BS. It's just straight up.
Yeah, progress first, price comes after. As long as the company keeps knocking it out like this, eventually something's got to give, right? There's no red flags that I've identified at all in this company. So to me, it just seems like it's artificially held down this time, right? With all the great news, and I feel like something's going to give in the future. So,
a couple more questions for you, Steve. Godfather. Hopefully, I didn't just break the fourth wall there.
I don't care.
No,
Go for it.
We're good. I think I said it in the beginning.
Shit. Audited financials. Where are we at with those? Along with what else? Uplisting. When can we expect those two things? What's the significance of those coming out for the stock?
Yeah. So for audited financials, so they're working with Malone and Bailey, and so the auditing firm, the company earlier in the year said, "Hey, we're targeting by April, if not sooner." Come mid-April, they provided a new milestone date. They said, "Hey, we believe it's going to be out by May 15th." So it's May 21st right now. So it's beyond a week. The company doesn't have any direct control on the auditing firm, right? So they were just providing their best estimates. There's specifically no deadlines that we have to meet for the audited financials, right? The only financials that needed to come out on time was the Q1 report, which did, and which is why we have our current pink earn status. But for audited financial, I mean, I'm expecting it to be out anytime soon, right? They gave mid-April, they told us within a month it would be available. So just based on that small time frame, I'm sure they had an idea in terms of when the audited financials will come out. So I'm actually expecting it anytime. I think it's probably going to come out before the end of the month, or May 30th. And as soon as they do, they still have to apply for OTCQB. And that typically takes around 4 weeks, even though I've been hearing of situations where companies can take up to 6 weeks or longer. But I imagine if they apply for OTCQB status, let's say they do this at the end of the month, it'll probably be out at the end of June or sometime in July. That's currently what I'm thinking, where I'm speculating based on when the audited financials will come out.
What's the significance of uplisting to OTCQB?
Yeah, so for uplisting OTCQB, there's a lot more visibility and transparency, right? So all your financials are audited, so there's less room for potential mishaps happening. Also, companies or big time institutional investors and other big investors tend to look at companies more favorably, right? So it actually opens up the door for some institutional investors who have a requirement to being at a certain tier to invest in your company, right? And then and these institutional investors may have other requirements. They may say, all right, your company has to be at a certain price. It has to be at a dollar for us to invest. So all of these slight advancements and progress, I think it's just really going to open up the door for us to actually see institutional investors. And if you look at Intel is at what, like 240 billion market cap. 66% of that market cap is due to institutional investors, right? That's $120 billion of this institutional investor money. So hopefully with the news that we're seeing, we're going to pull some of those guys in, right? Because, with the money that's already invested in Intel, they could buy our company over 500 times, right? That just goes to show how much money there is in Intel and those institutional investors. And within this last week, I think since the start of this month, we started with 2 institutional investors, and it's already up to 5. Granted, they don't own more than 0.04% of the float, but it's very interesting dynamics seeing more guys come in, more institutional investors in our company. And I think that's going to be a very favorable progress going forward. I think we're going to see more of them, and we're going to see more of them holding more money as well in our company.
Give us a look into for the rest of this year, and if possible, like the next 12 to 24 months for the company, obviously, if possible, as best as you can.
All right. So I think for the next couple of months, first thing I'm expecting the cycle to turn. I'm expecting us to finally be reflected in value. I'm not going to throw out some projections because in this market, it's impossible to guess anything. Right. But,
when do you think we can see the uptrend?
Oh man, trying to predict the market is very complicated in this type of environment. But looking at ENZC's chart, it looks like it's really bottomed out. It stayed relatively flat. I'm predicting it to start swinging starting in June, to start going up. I don't know how fast it's going to be, whether it's going to be slow and steady kind of drip, or if there's going to be an influx of buys coming in. But I do expect the bearish cycle to end soon. But kind of projecting like 6 months out in terms of what the company is doing. So, they're, fast tracking clinical trials for COVID. There's the animal trials for HIV. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot more news about different diseases and what they're doing with artificial intelligence. They might come out with herpes, influenza, and all these other ones before the end of the year. And then they're going to probably mention, hey, we're going to start producing the antibodies for these diseases. But going into 2022, that's where a lot of these drug developments we're early on right now. We're going to start seeing it go through FDA phases, right? So that's why we have Ron Moss, medical advisor, who specializes in this, right? You can navigate through the FDA approval process. So I think we're actually going to have a lot of drugs start being filled into that pipeline, and that's going to really raise some serious awareness for investors. Say, hey, this company's extremely legitimate. Here's what they're doing, right? And so I think by the end of 2022, I think there's going to be a lot of great progress from that standpoint. And honestly, by that point, and the company's mentioned that there's milestone-linked partnerships, right? The one that I'm predicting, and I've been predicting for a while, is Gilead, but it could be any one of them. And the milestone could be the animal trials, which happens at the end of the year, right? We know that Johnson & Johnson and BioClinex, before it merged, back in 2018, they were talking, say, hey, we're very interested. As soon as we see animal trials, we would likely invest. So I'm hoping that's still applicable here, that the animal trials is the key milestone that validates our technology. And so I'm thinking by the end of the year, we'll see either Johnson & Johnson or Gilead, at least on the HIV portion, right? Gilead, because I see it as a strategic fit. They're actually chasing after a cure for HIV. If you go on their website, they mention cure, and they're not talking about antiretrovirals. On the COVID side, I think it could be Eli Lilly, or it could be anybody that supports our technology. Because I know, a lot of these guys are struggling with different variants, right? And here we are with an immutable virus where we could easily partner with them, mutually beneficial. They get the advantage of, hey, having a drug that's outlasting. We get the benefit of actually having to partner with them and having the full support for funding. And then, of course, there's also the NIH funding, which I do expect. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'd say within the next 3 months, we'll see NIH funding for what we're trying to do for the COVID portion.
Well, Joey, if you don't have anything else, I mean, I'll give the Godfather a chance, to sign off here and say any last words to the investors.
Sure. How much time do we have?
We have about 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. I'll just say something really quick before we wrap up. So what I'll say is, what I tend to do is I tend to pay attention. I'll read through filings 5, 6, 7 times over. press releases. The one thing that I feel like people are ignoring is the fact of what this company did and why they merged with ENZC in the first place, right? There was the need to have a recombinant, which was ITV1, using in combination with clone 3 for their HIV antibody. However, there's another reason why companies go public. They go public, and this is fundamental, because they need to raise cash. They do so in exchange with you, the shareholder, say, hey, we'll give you part ownership of our company. You give us cash so we can grow faster, right? BioClinetics was struggling before in 2018. That's why, they had a GoFundMe page and all this stuff. And so they finally did the right thing, which is, hey, let's take this company public because we need that cash. However, here's what happens. So I was expecting dilution to happen. And I was like, you know what? This is actually a good thing because they're going to use dilution in a favorable way. What happened was they completely ceased dilution. No dilution whatsoever. So I'm kind of wondering, where exactly is that money coming from? Right? So they mentioned some outside investors, but what's interesting is that they ceased dilution, they exchanged debt, and to me, that is only a sign for one thing, and that is to building up or making themselves attractive for an equity investment. Right? They're ceasing dilution. They want to make themselves attractive. In the event that this opportunity comes out with a pharmaceutical company. So that's the big thing. I feel like people have just not necessarily paid attention to, but realized what the company's been doing. Right? They haven't diluted any shares. I feel like they could even reverse it. If they had capital, they probably would. Right? If they're signaling, hey, we don't want to share any more ownership than we already have, why not even take it a step further and conserve some of that ownership by buying back shares in the future? So that's really all I had.
Hey man, it once again, all great stuff. We appreciate everything. And we'll have to do this again, probably another 4 months or something, but we're gonna do it in person. We're all gonna make it work this time. Sorry that it took a little while to come out, guys, but just so you know, we try our best for you. So that's that. This is the VRE podcast. I'm Joey Roxett. That's Zach Rosen. That is Stephen Pop, aka the Godfather. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, all the social media, and that's that, man. We appreciate everything. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, man.